Hello, leveled up tubers, and welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy VI Brave New World with me, BlueAnkylo. So I spent a bit of time in between episodes and got everyone to level 30. So I don't think we're any higher level at the top as we were before. I just got everyone to the same level, so it's kind of fair for comparisons. And Esper levels are between about 18 and 20. I have a feeling the game really slows down the leveling at level 30 and then Esper level 20, but we'll see as we go along if we get too much further than that. I know your character level's 50 is the max, and your Esper level's 25 is the max, technically, so, you know, anyway, that's that. So, I want to spend a little bit of time at the beginning of today's episode to kind of go over my opinion of the characters in Brave New World at this point in the game, which is essentially end game. We don't have all the cool gear, and we have some levels to go, but sort of middle to late game. I just want to compare how the characters have felt thus far, because I spent quite a lot of time in between episodes. I'd say I spent a good few hours just leveling up everybody and just trying out some different strategies and equipment just to see if I was missing anything really that would make Gal better than what I'm finding, for instance. So anyway, I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about that, then we'll go pick up a couple sort of optional scenes, and hopefully, if we have time, we'll go start the mission to rescue Locke, who's our missing character still at the moment. So, let's just start with the main group that I I mean, the game forces you to use most of these at the beginning anyway, so we'll pick the first 4 of the World of Ruin first, and I'll have a little review of these guys. So, Edgar is freaking amazing. His magic selection isn't amazing. He's got some good support with slow and haste and safe and float. I don't use status debuffs very often, but once in a while it gives him some use. And he's got a little bit of healing, nothing crazy, but you know, spell-wise, definitely above average. And then Esper's like effects, like the auto haste is pretty good. And he's got some options for Esper stats. And a pretty good selection of Esper level bonuses, I'd say, as well. So you can give him not anything you want, but a good selection of vigor and speed and HP and a little bit of stamina, a little bit of magic. But you can kind of build him up however you'd like, and I like that. That's definitely a plus, because some characters, as we'll see, do not have that option. So he ends up with a lot of HP, because, well, he doesn't have to. But compared to the other characters, because I could put some Esper levels into his HP, he's got a lot more HP than average. Although as we get closer to level 35 and 40, the difference won't be as large, so it's more of an early game bonus, I would say. So his stats for me, anyway, I ended up kind of focusing on Vigor for a lot, because I think it was Vigor and HP together, and then Vigor and Speed together, so that's kind of why he's so focused on those. Which means his tools, might not be as strong as they could be, because most of these, I think, are going to be either magic or stamina based. Like, this is like a magical damage, so it's probably either magic or stamina. I don't even know, I mean, Auto Crossbow says physical attacks. I know it's physical damage, but I don't know if it runs off your vigor stat, necessarily. You know, bows don't usually work off of your strength, so maybe not. But his tools, even though I didn't really build him to be an awesome tool wielder, Brave New World has modified some a little bit. I don't think Defibrillator, I don't think I've ever been able to use this. I think it revives a character, but I've never had an opportunity for this to work. But Bioblaster, Auto Crossbow are really good. Noise Blaster, sometimes useful. Drill is a nice optional attack, and Flash is, you know, he's got a lot of viability because he can set status ailments. Blind, poisons, I think Drill gives him sap. Chainsaw will try instant death. I like the fact that you can get a variety of status ailments, and that's one of the reasons he's one of my top tier characters. Characters that don't have the option of status inflicting enemies in a reasonable fashion are kind of weaker, and he's even got slow if you want, and a couple difficult, like it's kind of rare to see mute and sleep. Lots of people have sap and slow and muddle. Those are like the more common ones. So he's got pretty good status infliction. His equipment set is really nice. He can use pretty much any sword or spear, and there's a ton of swords to select from. He can also use shields, which I haven't, because the mod has made spears so much better by giving them automatic gauntlet two-handing effect. They also have auto counter, which is good, and they work really well with jumping, which is why he's going to wear the dragon helm. And then his armor is kind of your standard heavy wielder. He wears vests and armor, kind of the heavier two. I guess mail as well, whatever. But he wears kind of the heavy set of armor. And then his relic selection, I don't know what unique relics he's got, other than the Dragoon Seal. There's probably some other stuff that I'm still missing for the late game, so, you know, later on, my opinion will change. But, you know, all the normal stuff, and this combination seems really, really strong. So his jump attack is doing a tremendous amount of damage. All things considered, he might be my strongest character. He's definitely an A-team no matter what. Celeste, quickly, well, you can see her spells. She's got a lot of focus on white magic. Almost all the white spells. She's missing Cure 3 and Life 2. And that might be it. Well, Regen X. There's a multiple Regen spell. There must be something else. But she's got almost all the white magic. She learned Bolt 3 at level 30. One of the reasons I got my party to level 30 is a lot of skills and spells were unlocked at 30. Which I believe is what Brave New World is designed to be approximately endgame. Level 30 is, I think, where it's balanced for you to be doing the final bosses and stuff. So she gets Ice 3, Bolt 3. That's pretty great. So she's got a lot of powerful attack magic that not everybody has access to. And 2 elements gives her a lot of use as well. And she's got a pretty good selection of gray magic, we call these things. You know, haste, dispel, slow, float, safe. Like, she's got some pretty good stuff. I'd like it if she had shell, but, you know, you can't get everything. So, pretty solid overall magic selection. For Espers, at this point, again, I know there's a few left we're missing out on, but I'm trying to give you a, like, for the majority of the game, this is applicable. If characters only get good when you get the final 2 Espers, I mean, that's that's too late to really matter for most reviews. But anyway, she's got a way to get a very strong physical attack. She can get magical, she can get speed, she can get really good on magic, more vigor with a little bit of stamina, and luckily she did have a way to boost her HP a little bit, which I felt really helpful. It took her a little bit longer than Edgar to get HP growth, but it was still possible in the World of Balance. Everything down to Golem, Zone Seek, and Seraph you can get before the world is destroyed. So it's not too late before she can gain some HP, and overall she has a pretty good Esper selection, of course. That's all that is. And then, of course, equipment-wise, she focuses mostly on swords with some of the ranged weapons, if you'd like, and she can dual-wield them. That's pretty cool. So, I don't know. I usually focus her mostly on magic, but you could definitely turn her into a physical powerhouse if you wanted. And as usual, as the girls go, she's got access to a lot of the magical girl equipment, so it feels like she's built to be a magic character, but you don't have to. You could go with the more heavy helmets that give her more defense, or you can focus her on the more speed or magical-based stuff. So she's got a good range, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. She's another A-team character, no doubt about it. Relic-wise, I'm not sure again if there's anything. Well, she's got, oh yeah, of course, don't let me forget. Leo's Crest, another major addition in Brave New World. This will change her runic ability to Shock, which is freaking awesome. So, she's another A-team member, no doubt about it. She gets all the regular relics, plus a really good unique one, as far as I can tell. And it's easy to get, which is a bonus. So, those two, it's nice that you start with them so early in the World of Ruin, because they're so good. And speaking of so good, let's talk about Saben for a minute. Blitzes, they're all really useful. What I like the most here is that he can inflict so many statuses for no MP. He can't get silenced out of them, he can't have his MP run out or drained. And the way Brave New World is balanced, it's a lot more difficult to gain MP. There's no Osmo spell for everyone, there's no tents, there's no sleeping bags. Tinctures and other MP restorative items are very expensive. So the fact that he can do fancy inflict statuses and magic attacks without using magic is really, really helpful. You know, Aura Bolt gives him a magical holy effect, which is rare. Very, very few characters can do a holy element damage. the best most people can do is use a cure spell on an enemy. This is one of the very, very few holy attacks. He's got a early game, free, fire damage to the whole enemy group. This stuff is great. Also, defense ignoring. It's also very difficult to get defense ignoring attacks. So, with a couple supports and a couple really good large groups and a couple good single targets, Saben is generally my favorite all-rounder. Now, Brave New World did change it so he doesn't get a lot of magic, which is fine. So he's only relegated to kind of some support magic. He can't do everything anymore, but that's fine. And I guess I forgot to show Celeste's stats. I ended up focusing mostly on magic and speed. So that's fine. And then for Saben, he's been focused mostly in vigor. Although I think it's possible a stamina Saben might be superior. But because he can do so much physical damage with his claws, the vigor really helps him dish out a lot of pain. And there's a lot more claws now, I feel like, than in the original. At least you can get them earlier. So he's got a lot more options for elemental attacks, which is really cool. And he gets automatic Genji Glove. So all things considered, I feel like these are in like a three-way tie for the top characters in the game. I might give Saben and Edgar the slight edge right now, although Celeste might get better later on as we get the last Espers. But between Edgar's jump and Saben's blitzes, they seem... The Figaro Bros seem to be the strongest, as they should be, in my opinion. But I know everyone will have differences of opinion here, but in my experiences leveling everyone up to 30, Edgar and Saben are fine. Like, they can kill stuff no problem. And the same with Celeste. Especially because Celeste, no matter what, she's going to get access to some pretty powerful magic. And a reasonably good amount of MP, even though you can't osmose it back up, lets her pretty reliably kill large groups of enemies or take advantage of elemental weaknesses. So those three, definitely thumbs up. No problems. Now, Setzer, so he's kind of white magic focused. You can see he's got multiple Regen X now. The thing is, he doesn't have a cheap cure spell, and this one really bugs me. He's never going to learn Cure 1. And I assume it's just part of the limitations for the way it was designed with limited Esper equipping. But I really think if you're planning on being a healer, if he's going to be our primary healer on our party, he should have a cheap cure spell for party, like, menu healing. And he doesn't really. Like, Remedy heals a little bit, and it's half the price of Cure 2, but you can't multi-target her or anything, and that's... I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but as far as a healer goes, he's not my top-tier healer, even though that's kind of what he's built for. And his offensive magic is pretty lacking. Poison does work quite well against human enemies, and Doom is better than it used to be, but I'm still not a huge fan. And that's all he's got for now. Again, he might get another Esper later on. But even all of these, like, I would say Regen X is really good. But he doesn't get this until very late in the game. So, I don't know. I'm still not convinced he's very good. But maybe that'll change as I get closer to the end of the game. That's just his magic, though. His skills... So he's got the slot, and eventually we can turn that into coin toss. I haven't seen coin toss yet in Brave New World. Maybe that will help him out. But slot, I'm really not a fan of. I feel like what you get out of his slots is a time-wasting minigame in the middle of a battle that just slows everything down. And it's easy to mess up. Easier to mess up a slot than a blitz. And the end result is fewer blitzes. Like, we don't have 8 possible blitzes. We've got 8 blitzes or 8 tools or 8 sword techs or Bushidos for Cyan. Setzer's only got like 4 or 5 different slot options, and they're not very good. The healing one, like the failure slot that heals, doesn't heal very much. I mean, as he levels up, it's better, but it's still not a full cure. It's just half of your HP, give or take. And he's got like a chocobo attack and an airship attack and stuff. It's nice. They actually do acceptable amounts of damage, but for the amount of trouble it is to select them, I'm not a fan. If his slots were just menu selected, like Saben's blitzes or Edgar's tools, I guess is more what I mean, I'd say that would rank him up a bit better, but because it's such a pain, I'm not, it's too much work for the trouble. too much trouble for what it's worth. And that leads to this next big failing. His weapons don't do any damage. If you're playing Brave New World, I'm all referring to Brave New World, of course, specifically. They don't do enough. Now, once we get dice and fixed dice, I assume things will get better. But for the majority of the game, the majority of the time that you've got Setzer, his damage is just trash. You kind of need to keep him in the back row to keep him safe, and so you're using the cards, and they don't... I've never seen the cards do enough damage to really, you know, pique my interest. At least not yet. And then the daggers are more front row oriented, which he'll just get himself killed. You can also give him, if you don't want to dual wield, you can give him a shield, which will help keep his survivability up. He's got an acceptable selection of helmets and armor. Kind of like Edgar for armor, and then, I guess kind of like Edgar for his standard sort of medium to heavy armor for this guy. Which is fine. He does get a unique Daryl's Soul in Brave New World, but it doesn't seem very good because his attack isn't very good. 2 times bad is still bad, unfortunately. I'm assuming there's going to be some combinations later on, but we'll address those at the end of the game. For now, he's still not very good, in my opinion. And also, if you just look at his stats in general, it's really hard to get his magic power high enough that the cure spells are doing much. And keeping in mind that he's got Regen X, right? Like that's the big woo here is, yeah, that's this big expensive MP that he sets Regen on the whole group. That's pretty valuable. And Cure 3 is a very powerful healing spell, or offensively against undead. But he's really struggling to get enough magic to do damage. If you focus on his stamina, Regen will be better, but then Cure will be worse, and Poison will be worse. You kind of, early on, at least he's got the option of getting HP and MP like Celeste, so that's a small bonus for him. He doesn't lag behind HP early game too badly. And I guess he does have the option of pure magic or pure stamina, so, I mean, that's kind of your choice. Either build him for magic or build him for stamina cures. I don't know, for me, he just didn't get enough magic. I think his base magic stat is really poor. Like, I think I've put in at least... I would expect at least 8 to 10 Esper levels of just pure magic. That's like plus 20 magic. I bet you he starts with less than 30 magic power. So he's got kind of averagely slow speed, below average stamina, and pretty low magic. And his primary use is magic. So that kind of proves he's not great. And he doesn't have very good vigor or anything for offensive attacks either, so... I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Feel free to leave a comment if you know how to make Setzer good at this point in the game. If he gets better late game and you're saying, Blue, just wait till you can quad attack, fix dice, I'm like, yeah, well, we'll get there when we get there, but we don't have those yet, so... unless there's a way to get those way earlier, that's not fair, because we're very near the end of the game now. So let's pick another 4 characters. Realm, yeah, we'll bring Realm. The big downside for her is I really don't like her edited script, her new dialogue. So we'll bring Straggle and Realm and some of the other weaklings, Gao, and I'll bring some of my less favorites this time. So these 4, I'll try to go through these a little bit quicker. I know I already spent like 20 minutes. Okay, let's speed this up a little bit. So Straggle, I'm not a fan of. His weakness for me is he's a pure mage. Like that's all he's good at is magic. His speed stats, his vigor stats are terrible. He's never going to do physical damage well. He's never going to be fast. And so what's he good at? Magic. Well, what magic does he have? Ice 2. That's not good enough this late in the game. He does have Osmos, so he's got one of the very few characters that can replenish his MP. And in fact, he's got 2 ways to do it. He can use Raid. But then what does he do with all his MP? I don't know. He's only got support magic for me. I assume there's another Esper he'll learn at some point that teaches him... In fact, I know there's another one that will teach him some more magic, but he might not get it till the very last dungeon, so whoop-de-woo. That's pretty weak. And then his Esper levels focus on magic and MP, and a little bit of stamina. He's got no way to raise his HP, so he's always fragile, especially early on when when you're not level 30 and he's got 500 HP when enemies are doing 1,000 damage. And they still do over 1,000 damage quite easily, so he just can't even take a hit. I don't think he gets enough magic to be good. And that's my biggest complaint. He's got a few support spells, nothing unique or really that amazing, other than Osmos. And then his lore is supposed to be what props him up, spends his MP to do lore. The problem is, these spells don't do enough damage. Very, very few enemies are weak to water, and this is his only multi-target lore that he, like, well, he might get more eventually. But at this point in the game, this is his only good multi-target spell, and it's water element, which almost nothing is weak to. Very, very rare, in my opinion. And it just doesn't dish out enough damage. So, he starts with this lore. It's fine when you get him, and if you're fighting fire enemies that are weak against water, that's pretty good. But then, once you're past that, it's not very fun, not very strong. The one thing I will give him is that his other lores here do... I did pick up Raise. I'll show you where I picked that up later. The good news is... And Blowfish, too, I forgot. He has some status inflictions available. Blaze does a little bit of fire damage. It might be similar to Fire 2, give or take. Except only single target. And Blind and Sap are good status inflictions. Like, that's good. I've seen this work on some powerful enemies, and then they're blinded, and then they can't hit you very often. So, like, with their physical attacks, that's cool. Blowfish is cheap for 1,000 damage, but 1,000 damage is nothing. By the time you learn Blowfish, you'd have to be on the floating continent, and most characters can dish out more than 1,000 damage. So that's not very impressive. The only thing good about it is that it's always 1,000. It's like... defense ignoring, undodgeable. Actually, I don't know if you can dodge it or not, but it avoids magic defense and physical defense, which is sometimes useful against certain enemies, but again, it's rarely that good. Discord, I've never been a huge fan of. Compare this to like Edgar's Noise Blaster, which does the same thing but to a whole group for free. Like, that's terrible. Holy Wind is an okay heal. It's pretty expensive on MP early on, and because Straggle always has a bad max HP, if he takes a hit, Holy Wind is basically useless. So 30 MP to heal at best 978 HP to the whole group right now. It's probably not as good as Celeste casting Cure 2. In fact, I'm 100% sure, and it costs twice as much. So, and if he takes damage, it does nothing. So, it's pretty weak. Raid is useful, mostly for restoring his own MP. Because it ignores magic defense, it actually turns out to be better than Osmos in many situations. And unless you're fighting undead or something, it's a pretty good way. If the enemy has MP, you can just steal it. So he's got a couple options to keep him casting magic, but then, at least up to this point, very few things to do with his MP, and that's the downside. Raise is new. I learned this near Tamasa, on the little island Tamasa is on in the World of Ruin. There's a little dinosaur enemy in the forest. I looked it up because I wanted to see if I'd been missing any lores. And it's okay. I haven't really tested it out much, but because it costs 3 times as much as Blaze, maybe this will do enough damage that will change my mind, but I didn't get it until he was already level 30 because I didn't know where to find it. It's easy to miss lores when you don't know where to look. So hopefully this helps out a little bit. It's all about poison and sap. So that, if it doesn't kill an enemy, but it does inflict poison and sap, that's a lot of damage over time. So maybe this will help, but what I really wanted for him was better multi-target abilities, and he doesn't have it. He's got single-target spells other than this. And I know they cut out a lot of his lores from the original game, and I don't think they added enough back in, is kind of my current opinion. I know there's a few more, and some of them are supposed to be quite strong. There's an upgraded Aqua Rake, almost exactly an upgraded Aqua Rake, like going from Ice 2 to Ice 3, basically, for water. But I don't think you can get it except in a very, well, end-game dungeons, so you can't get it right till the end of the game. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys like Straggle. Again, I might be missing something, but I feel like he's not all he's cut out to be. For me, anyway. Was there anything else to talk about? His equipment? I don't know. Rods are okay. I like the change to rods, but he's still not very strong attacking. So you'd have to put him in the front row to get the MP critical cast magic on a hit type effect. And, you know, he does have pretty good elemental choices with all of that. That's nice. But you have to put him in the front row, and he's got no HP or defense, so it seems like a bad idea. His equipment should almost always be a rod of some sort plus a shield. And then he gets kind of the light armor, so mostly focused on magic. If I was giving recommendations, I'd try to boost his speed up as much as you can. Something like a Dark Hood might be worth it. His magic's good enough if you can find the right spell, but he's really slow, so speed helps. And him and Realm and Mog get access to some of the special equipment. I don't know what you want to call these, but hides, you know, tabby, gator, chocobo hides. They are better than equivalent at the same tier, so that's nice. And it gives him some speed, so... His equipment isn't terrible, I just think he's missing some spells, mostly. And I ended up spending 5 minutes talking about one character again. Alright, Mog, next. What's to say about Mog? His special skill, we'll start with that. So his dances, oh yeah, I picked up his dance, no big deal. You just go to Narsh up to the snowfields and you'll learn it right away. It's really not a big deal. I like his dances. There is, as it turns out, a way to avoid the sort of berserk or rage effect of the dances. If you equip the Moogle Charm, which used to be better, and ignore all enemy... no random encounters was the old effect. What this now does, both it increases his speed of his jump attacks, and it changes how dances work. So if you dance, there's always a chance to fail when you're switching backgrounds. So like if you're in a plane, you can cast Windsong, you'll never fail it. If you want to switch to forest, you have a chance to stumble and fail your dance. Apparently, as his stamina gets better, that happens less often. So a stamina Mog might be useful just for dancing if you like dancing. But the Moogle Charm will mean he will just do one ability in the set of 4 abilities. Like, each one of these has 4 potential spell effects, basically. And Moogle Charm will not sort of enrage him, so you'll have to input the dance every turn that you want to do. So if you like the forest dance, you can just keep inputting forest. Once he's done it successfully once, it's now a forest, and you can just keep selecting this over and over again to get whatever spells you want. This is a good change, and it does help Mog's usefulness, in my opinion. His dances are generally pretty good, maybe slightly stronger than Saben's blitzes, give or take. Not immensely more powerful, but if you had an offensive air blade, like, you know, wind blade, whatever you call Saben's target all wind effect, compared to Mog's wind blast type thing, I think Mog's are slightly stronger at the same level, but it's pretty close. The problem is you're still not selecting which attack you want. So a lot of the times, like, you'll pick a dance, it'll have one of them is a healing spell, one of them is a small damage to enemy group spell, one of them's a maybe large damage to a single target, and then some other random effect. But you still only end up with a 1 in 4 kind of chance of getting what you want. It's not optimal, but you can get lucky, but you can also get pretty unlucky, because a lot of times when I use Mog's dance, what I want is the healing, right? I want to heal the party, and he's got some good heal the whole party by a good amount type dances. But you've only got like a 5 in 16 or something like that chance. So it's not reliable like just casting Cure. So overall, I give dances, like, because of the changes with the Moogle Charm, I think they're better than they were in the vanilla game. But I still don't, like, it's hard. Like, I don't think they're as good as Edgar's tools or Saben's blitzes. They're a B tier skill. That's kind of, and the same thing like with the lores. They're not terrible, but they're not as good as my top tier guys. So that sort of puts him in the B tier for skill. And then his magic selection isn't too hot. You know, he's got the poison stuff that Setzer has. Break is wind damage, which is actually pretty good. A defense ignoring spell isn't bad at all. There's been some times where this was quite useful. But overall, his spell selection is pretty weak. Below average or just averagely poor. And and then his Esper selection is kind of focused on magic and stamina. Actually, it's not even that much. I guess that's the thing, like, if I wanted to boost his dancing abilities, the best I can do is 1 stamina per Esper level. So I'm never going to get his stamina all that high. And because he's a bit more of a jack of all trades compared to Edgar, you know, you might want to, if you want to use his dances, he needs some stamina and maybe magic to boost the power. But then he's not making his lance better and he's slow. So it's difficult to tell what Esper level works for Mog, and I think I'm missing 1 or 2. Maybe later on he'll have some more usefulness. And of course he's got no HP Esper, so... I don't know. I don't think he's bad. I would say so far he's better than Straggle and Setzer, but not as good as the other 3, is in my opinion. He's okay. And again, same kind of thing. He can use rods, but he should be using a spear. He can use the Dragon Helm. It's equipped on Edgar right now. But you only have 1 Dragon Helm, so you can't have both of them with double jump. And then his armor is slightly more varied than Edgar's. He's got access to some of the medium, light, sort of magic buffing stuff. So he's got, you know, lots of options. But, yeah, anyway, that's enough for Mog. Dances are interesting, but I'm still not a huge fan. Next up is Realm, who's our second and final Osmos user. And she gets more out of it than Straggle does. So he doesn't get... Straggle doesn't have very many useful spells, in my opinion. And he's very reliant on getting lores that don't suck. But Realm, I mean... Regen X is good. Cure 3 is good. Re-Rise, is okay. And Remedy's pretty good. And then she's got access to Flare, which is a very powerful single targeting spell. And Meteor, which is a very powerful and target all spell. The downside with these are they're expensive for MP, which is why she's got Osmos. So this is a pretty good combination in my opinion. I wish she had better spell selection, but this is enough for me to think she's not too bad. Better than Straggle. Although she doesn't have lores. So, you know, your opinions are what they are. But yeah, Bahamut, also you could equip Bahamut and summon him, and he's a very powerful Esper summon, like damage-wise. So that's a way to spend some of her MP as well. She doesn't have any way to grow her HP, so she's another one that's very... I do put a lot of emphasis on characters being strong enough to take a hit in Brave New World, especially at level 20 or so. Like, level 15 to 25, where most people have like 400 to 600 HP if they don't have an Esper. The game is too hard to really consider bringing low HP characters, and that's one of her downsides, as with most of my not top tier characters. But she has the option to increase her speed, which is great. She has the option to increase her max MP and magic. That's pretty good. Her stamina, I don't know what she would use this for other than regen and remedy. So probably not that good of a choice for her. And then Bahamut is just MP, which again, I don't know. I feel like the attributes like speed and magic are a bit more useful. But I would be willing to do this level up a few times, magic plus MP. I guess that's the only way she can raise her magic stat right now. Yeah, she's missing a +2 magic Esper, so she can't really maximize her meteor or flare damage just yet. So that's a downside, a small downside. Anyway, her special skill is Sketch, and she's... I've tested it out against most of the enemies on the world map and a few of the dungeons for World of Ruin that we've been to already. If you're fighting the right enemy, Sketch is pretty awesome. But it's totally reliant on who you're fighting and what their special Sketch abilities are. So there's like, let's just fly around for a bit for a change of scenery here. Some areas of the world, such as down here, have these large bird monsters. They're Avis or Arvis or something type of monsters, whatever. We fought them before, large giant bird things. One of their sketch abilities, and I think every enemy has 2 different sketch attacks. So if you have Realm Sketch It, one of its attacks is a kind of a lightning bolt thing. I forget the name of the attack, Zap or something like that. And it's weak to lightning. So if you sketch it, it has a 50% or some sort of chance of being lightninged, and it will do like at level 30, almost 9,999 damage, and the bird has a lot of HP, so that's really, really good. So against some enemies, Sketch is one of your strongest attacks. Now, keeping in mind, it's a bit random, and you could select like a regular physical hit that does 100 damage or, you know, something. But with a good magic stat on Realm, Sketch can do a ton of damage. Similarly, Gao, if he rages into that bird and does the exact same attack, he will do like a quarter of the damage. Like, Realm Sketch is buffed, it's boosted pretty high for damage. On the other hand, a lot of enemies you fight, you can sketch them. So like I was testing this out in the Narsh environs around there in the cave. A lot of those enemies use ice elemental attacks, Snowball, the Absolute Zero, stuff like that. If you sketch them, you will cast Snowball or Absolute Zero on the enemy group a good amount of time. But they're all immune to it, so sketch does nothing. So it really just depends on what you're fighting. Sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes it does a little bit of damage. Sometimes it's really awesome. But that makes her really unreliable in my opinion. And her sketch has to be thought of as a secondary skill that you can't rely on. You have to test it out and hope that you get lucky in a given scenario. Unlike Edgar or Saben's skills, who are my benchmark good skills, you can't really use sketch strategically. It's just, if you're lucky, it turns out it's awesome, or if you're unlucky, it's just it's worthless. So, does that make Realm better or worse? I mean, I don't know. Once in a while, it's like a random trump card that turns out awesome, if you take the time to test it out. But most of the time, I think I would just ignore sketch. Now, that said, in the original game, so I would expect also in Brave New World, there will be a relic that changes sketch a little bit, and we'll have to test things out if we can find that. So that's kind of one last chance for her skill. Overall, her stats are pretty weak again, a little bit more speed and magic, but no HP growth really, or lower HP growth. She's at the bottom of the HP spectrum. In fact, I think she's one of the very, very few characters that has less than 1,000 HP at level 30. Which is a real bummer. Like, she still dies to 1,000 needles at level 30, and that's really sad. Like, that's not a good sign. So, Realm. Also, I know I'm missing a lot of her paintbrushes. There are brushes that have extra status effects, like regeneration or maybe even re-raise. So, once we've got better brushes, it might help. She'll have more options for like positive status inflictions on the party for free. That would be quite useful, but I don't have them right now, so I don't know where to find them really. I've been looking around and this is all I've got, so I think there's a couple in the Coliseum and I just don't know how to get them yet. Other than that, you know, light gear, I think I talked about her equipment. Same as Straggle for the most part. Her, Straggle, and Gal have pretty similar equipment sets. Also, she does get the unique relic for whatchamacallit here, Memento Ring, and this gives her pretty good stat bonus. Like, I don't know if it has any secondary effects in Brave New World. I think it was supposed to prevent death effects in the original, but some of these things I just don't know the mechanics well enough to comment on, but it's a pretty good relic. It's not top tier, but it's pretty good. Alright, Gao. Looks like today's episode is just talking about characters. That's fine. We'll just call this a bonus episode where we do a character review, which is probably something Brave New World needs now and then. So Gao... well, Gao... Early game, he's really stifled by lack of espers. The only stat he can improve is stamina, which I don't know if it does him any good, so whoop-de-woo. His spell selection is perhaps the worst in the game, and his Esper selection is also probably about the worst. Now, Fenrir is better. He still has no way to gain HP, or Vigor, or Magic. Which is, like, a lot of his rages do physical damage, so Vigor would be nice. I assume a lot of his blitzes, or his rages do magical damage, so some magic would be nice. Because what I've been noticing is a lot of his rages, and I have tried to expand them. I've been trying to test out as many as I can. They just don't hit very hard, and I think a lot of that is because his... I mean, I could be wrong, but I think a lot of it is because his magic and stamina are so low. I'm not sure if stamina affects them, but his magic for sure, and he's got no way to really increase his magic. So, he ends up being a quick at least if you use Fenrir, a quick character that uses rages. And rages are a lot like Sketch, except, like I was saying, I forget which one was the bird, but actually I think it was the Harpy, was the lightning bird that I was talking about with Sketch. If Gao uses Harpy, he will have a 2/3 a chance of one attack and a 1/3 chance of a different attack. But he can use the same attack that the bird uses and that Realm can Sketch. But he will do like a quarter of the damage. Like Realm was doing over 8,000 damage with it. Gao was doing less than 2,000. At about the same level. So I'm like, it's pretty weak. I know what people like about Gao is that all of these different rages, they each have 2 attacks. Some of them physical, some of them magical. So he has access to every elemental attack in the game, which is rare. Most characters in Brave New World only have ice and lightning, or fire and wind, or something like that. Poison and dark. Gao does technically have access to every type of element and probably every status effect. But it's just not enough. Like, his HP's terrible, he's uncontrollable once you use them. Even if, and I mean I'm pretty sure it does, even if you use... If you spend one of your other character's actions to use a, whatchamacallit here, somewhere in here, a green cherry, you can break him out of his rage, kind of like how the Moogle Charm lets you select every dance. You can select a rage, let him do a couple attacks, and then green cherry him and switch to a different rage. Maybe there's a way to combo like that, but I mean, this is just too much work for me. I know one of the other perks is most of these rages come with like a built-in status effect or elemental effect for Gao himself. So if you're fighting an enemy that always uses ice magic, there's probably one of these that absorbs ice. But I don't know which one, and I don't want to read through a huge spreadsheet to try to figure it out. Or, you know, I mean, try to remember the right enemy, I guess. But, you know, point is, he's only good if you basically memorize all the rages. And there's less rages than there were in the original game, so that helps. But I'm still really struggling to find a good use for him. And I did pick up some really powerful rages in between episodes here. Colossus is the giant Gigist-style enemy that we were fighting in, remember where we found Cyan in the Zozo caves around the purple dragon that was, the Colossus was kicking our butt? Gao can use that rage now, and it's really strong. The dragon one is pretty strong, the harpy one has, like, I've got a lot of new rages that they have powerful attacks, but I find Gao still dies all the time because his HP is about the worst, and even if I'm using the right rage, he's not dealing enough damage. Now, again, maybe what I should have tried, and I didn't think it would work at the time, but maybe Stray's stamina bonus does make his rages better, and maybe that's what I'm missing, but I just went with Fenrir because I knew at least speed would help him, and I thought, at least, that stamina would do nothing, basically, so that was my logic. I could be wrong. Anyway, that's Rage, that's Gao. I still put him in pretty much the bottom of the list, honestly. Him and Straggle are about the most useless characters, in my opinion, at the moment. Realm is better, Setzer's pretty bad, and then, like, the Figaro Bros and Celeste are really good. And we still have a couple more to have a quick look at, although I think it's only 2 left. Oh, we didn't do Terra yet. We didn't do maybe 3 left? Normally we'd have Locke for a full set of 3 groups of 4, but Locke, he's the hardest character of the original set to get in the World of Ruin, so there's a reason we get him last. So, okay, these 3. These are all good characters. So Terra is awesome. I wish she had a little bit more access to magic. She did learn, I believe it was Regen X on her own, and I think she learned Fire 3 on her own as well. So she's got, I would say, a pretty good selection of offensive magic. Not a lot of elements, but Fire 3 gives her strong fire, Break is wind, and Storm is wind and water. So technically she can take advantage of 3 elements, sort of. The thing with combo elements is if the enemy is, let's say, weak to water, but ignores wind, like nullifies wind damage, this storm will do nothing. The nullification or absorbing will trump a weakness. So if an enemy absorbs or nullifies either element, it's basically nothing. It's harder to take advantage of an elemental weakness when you have multi-element, is generally the truth, in the way it works. But she's got a lot of good healing spells. I like the new Regen X and Regen. She's got Life and Life 2, Cure and Cure 2, and her magic stat, for me at least, is high enough that Cure 2 heals pretty much the full group anyway. So Cure 3 is not really needed, so she's got a lower MP costing heal that pretty much heals you to full. And Life 2 is really nice. I would say Life 2 is better than Re-Raise. You know, Re-Raise you have to cast ahead of time. You still end up dying, which means you lose your buffs and your turn order. And it's, I don't know, I just feel like Re-Raise, it's nice, but it's less good than Life 2. Re-Raise doesn't restore you with full HP either, the way I remember it. So Life 2 is, someone's dead, I need them alive, and I need them to not die again. So bring them back with full HP. And that's pretty valuable on bosses and difficult encounters. And then she has a pretty good selection of status support magic. Nothing crazy, but not too many people get Reflect, so that's... I mean, I haven't really used it at all this Let's Play, but sometimes Reflect will be really good. And it's just my own laziness for not trying it out more often. But Reflect has some good value in Final Fantasy VI. And then Esper-wise, like I said, I know she's missing some late game. She's missing at least 2, which will give her some more options. 3, actually. She's got a lot of high-end late-game Espers, which is why it looks like she's short on them right now, but I know she's got some more stuff coming. I feel like her early-game Esper level choices are a little bit weak. The good news is she can get HP, she can get MP, she can boost her magic, although not +2, and then if you want to make her into a fighter, physical fighter, you can as well. I would prefer probably this Meduin to be just magic instead of magic stamina, because I feel like to get the most out of her right now, pure magic stat would be the best. Then you'd morph her, put her in the back row, and Fire 3 or Storm or whatever your best offensive spell is, and she'd kick butt. But, you know, we've still got time for stuff like that later on. Other than that, what's there to say about Terra? Her skill is reliable. It always does the same thing, so there's no randomness to it, which is a plus for me. It's a little bit glass cannon-y with the changes in Brave New World. I don't think it's a very good idea to put her in the front row and use Morph, unless you've got some way of keeping her alive, and that's difficult, because when she's morphed, she takes double damage. So at least if you put her in the back row, it gives her a bit of protection. If you give her the right equipment, you can make her... Well, at the moment, she's very resistant to magic. 171 magic defense and 92 magic block. So back row protects her from physical a little bit, and then her armor protects her from a lot of magic. This way I can morph her, she'll probably not die in one hit, and then she can dish out a ton of magic damage. I don't know if that's the best build for her, but it seems to work pretty well for me, and it puts her in the A tier, because that combination, because of her morph, she can hit some of the highest damage in the game. I would prefer an earring style relic, and maybe I just haven't found one yet. I need one that boosts just magic damage that I can equip on her. The only one so far that does that is the Nirvana Band, and I don't think she can equip it. Although I could be wrong, but only a couple people can equip the Nirvana Band. So, plus 25% magic damage would pretty much put her definitely up there with Edgar, Saben, and Celeste, and she's already pretty much there anyway, so... Pretty strong, no problems there. Then we've got Shadow, probably the last... There's only 3 or 4 characters that are sub 1000 HP at level 30, and he's one of them. The good thing about that, though, is it's pretty easy to get his physical evasion over 100. I don't know if I've got the gear for it with me right now, but depending on which weapons you equip him, you can give him weapons that boost his evasion, plus armor that boosts his evasion. And then a couple relics that also do that. And someone should always have a back guard, so that's not a big deal. Plus he's got a unique rogue cloak. If you like. I mean, magical damage mostly just helps him out with his throne ninja scrolls, but that's something. Also, I haven't really covered this before, but suspiciously he can equip the memento ring as well. Isn't that strange? Anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that next episode, maybe. But yeah, he's not too difficult to get over 100 evasion, and I think his Esper gives him evasion as well. Yeah, block is physical evasion. So if you go that way, 114 physical evade. I don't know what... Like, there's very few things that are going to hit him in physical. So I feel like that kind of makes up for his low HP. He's no longer super, super weak like Realm or Straggle, so that keeps him alive. He also gets a ton of speed, so he gets his turns really quickly. But I have a hard time dishing out damage with him. So maybe that plus 25% magic damage with his throw skill would stack enough. I haven't found it to generally do enough damage. I have tried it, and if you're fighting enemies weak to one of these 3 elements, it does pretty good damage. I've seen 3,000 or 4,000 damage to the whole group. That's pretty good. But if they're not weak to it, cut that in half, and if you don't equip that extra relic for 25%, you're probably still looking at sub 2,000, which is fine. Like, that's kind of Gao's tier of damage. But we're not quite on Edgar or Saben, Terra, Celeste tier. Also, I didn't notice this. Normally Shuriken is single target. Apparently, Brave New World, you can actually multi-target Shuriken. I haven't even tried that yet. I just wanted to point out that I missed it. Hopefully there's some better Shurikens we can buy, or better scrolls we can buy later on, that would make him a little bit stronger, because that's kind of what he's missing is damage. And I found that, generally speaking, his physical attack is not good enough. He gets, I think, one of these weapons gives him ×2 attack. I think it's the Kaganui. And that gives him like 4 attacks per round, is how it works. Which is fine, but it's still doing like, most enemies were doing like 200 to 300 damage per hit. Which is not, like, compared to the big hitters that are doing thousands of damage, his physical attack seems rather weak. So, how do you deal damage with him? I don't know. His magic isn't anything special. You know, he doesn't really have much magic. His Esper selection is really limited, so... I don't know. Maybe I'm still missing something. I would put him in the middle tier, in the B tier again. He's not bad. He's not as bad, as, in my opinion, as Gao or Straggle or Setzer, but he's definitely not quite an A-lister for me yet. And then, finally, last but not least, hour-long episode, wow. This took a lot longer than I expected. Sion. So Sion is a winner in Brave New World. His magic selection is a bit weak, and at the moment he only has access to HP and stamina, or vigor. HP is good because it keeps him alive early game, that's a plus. Vigor is nice because he does a lot of physical attacks, so that's nice. It would be nice if he also had a just stamina Esper level, and it would be nice if he had something that gave him speed. Like, I'd prefer to see maybe one more Esper that gave him +2 stamina, and Kieran give him something like HP and speed. And that way he'd get a little bit of speed, and he could buff up his stamina if he wanted. Because some of his skills do rely on stamina, so if we want, I think Empower and Dragon and Eclipse, you want these to work, you need his stamina to be high. I've never seen the stone effect work with the dragon attack, so it's kind of a weak status infliction. I've never seen it kill anything. It does do good damage, but most things seem to be immune to stone, so whoop-de-woo. Eclipse is a nice new ability that Blind is acceptable, and it does good amount of damage to the whole group. This is one of those new sword techs that really helps Sion do well in the World of Ruin. So that's a big bonus. Flurry is pretty terrible. I don't really recommend it. If you can get Muddle to work, it's fine. But other than that, the damage is pretty weak. And then, this is nice. This actually, he's one of the very few characters that can recharge his MP. This is a lot like the Raid spell from Straggle, or the Raid lore. So that's cool. And Sap is okay. And then Dispatch, because it's defense ignoring, it's mostly focused on killing humans. But it does do a ton of damage to humans, so that's good. And then Mind Blow kind of focused on killing undead. It's not the... I don't think it's quite as good as the Blitz selection or the Tool selection. Oh, by the way, I did just learn this at level 30. This is kind of Flurry's upgrade. It definitely does more damage. I think my Straggle needs a new sword, is kind of what I'm missing. It's doing good damage, but it's still nowhere near Edgar's jump, for instance. And it takes kind of the same amount of time to set up as a jump, so... it's fine, but... I give him like an A- for his skills. It's definitely better than Brave New World, or the vanilla Final Fantasy VI, but not quite top tier is all I'm saying. And then his magic selection, his cure stuff is good. He doesn't really have enough magic for this to help out much. He makes an acceptable secondary healer, but a rather poor primary healer. So I would recommend putting him in a party that has someone else who's a bit better at cure magic. But he's nice to have along with them for secondary heals, is the point. And I haven't really used his offensive magic very much. I mean, look at his magic stat. He's never going to hit things with magic very hard. And there's no espers to give him magic, so... So that's pretty much that for Sion. His equipment is nice. I think two-handing these swords gives him auto-counters. Although, no, it's... Some of the swords give him auto-counters. So unlike the two-handed lances, he doesn't get that. But they do a lot of damage, and he doesn't wear shields or anything anymore, so that's that. He wears the heavy armor and the medium sort of hoods. Because most of his sword attacks require being in the front row, I feel like he's one of those characters that should have a high physical defense, and that's kind of why I gave him the Genji helm. But yeah, so Sion I end up giving an almost A-team rating. Like, I think he's a little bit behind Edgar, Saben, Celeste, and Terra, but not by much. He could fill in for me any day. And then after him, like just to give a general ranking, I guess, we'll go to this screen. Just one last thing for today's episode, seeing as I'm just playing around. If I was to order them, I think I have to put Edgar in front because of his ridiculous jump damage and then useful skills, and then Saben's blitzes. And then it's either Terra or Celeste, but I'll give it to Celeste because she gets Ice 3 and Bolt 3, whereas Terra gets Fire 3 and sort of wind and water stuff, but it's a little bit more difficult to match. And then Sion is definitely next, probably followed by Shadow. And then I'm going to throw Mog in there. Mog is not bad, but I think these guys are better. This is pretty much in order. Realm is about after them, in my opinion. And these guys are all the worst in my... Setzer's probably the better of these three. And for me, anyway, Straggle and Gao have been terrible this Let's Play. So that's my current opinion, and hopefully it makes some sense. This episode turned out to be not even a normal episode, and we just spent an hour talking about characters. But hopefully, if you're playing along or you're involved in the Brave New World mod, this gives you a bit of a perspective. There's probably some stuff that I've totally not... Like, I've totally dissed out about. Like, there really could be things I'm just not aware of in Brave New World that would make characters much better. But for someone who's done a non-trivial amount of research into the mod, playing it my first time, I feel like I'm more aware of Brave New World's changes than a blind player, first-time player would be. And if I've still missed it, then it's not very obvious. And, well, it's probably not very honest. Not very obvious. And, anyway, that's my opinion. Hopefully you enjoyed the little chat there. I'll try not to talk about the character's strengths too much in the following episodes. Next time, we've got a bit of sleeping to do. I'll give you a couple hints. We've got some sleeping, we've got some chit-chats, and some, well, dungeoning, I guess. At this point in the game, you can go pick up all the espers and do a bunch of side quests. I normally save locks for a bit later because it's a difficult dungeon. But what I have noticed is, although there's 2 espers and another character we can get in Narsh, this is the most difficult area in Brave New World I've found so far. So I don't think we should be going here too early. So I'll save that for later. And I'm a little bit worried about this also special area. I feel like that might be a little bit too difficult for our current party. Just with how Brave New World has done it. Similarly, there's a really nasty boss in here that I'm trying to avoid, so I'm going to save that one for a little bit later as well. I feel like usually the secret dungeon in here, I know I'm being rather vague for those of you that have never played the game. Why would you still be watching after this point? It'd be crazy. You should go play the game. The secret dungeon here, I'm pretty sure is designed to be one of the last ones you do, and I expect it to be quite difficult, so that Esper is going to be one of the last ones. And that's pretty much all the extra areas left, so I don't know. It's not too bad. Yeah. Alright. Well, thanks, folks. Hope you've enjoyed the character review. Next episode, we'll get back to work and we'll assault. Well, like I said, this is a very large dungeon, so we'll get a start on that next episode. All right, folks. See you next time. BlueAnkylo out.